Joining us now here on our college lacrosse preview show. He is, of course, the head coach at the University of Maryland. He's Coach John Tillman, and he's back with us here on GCR. Coach, it's Glenn and Patrick. It's always great to see you. Thank you for taking the time for us. I want to talk to you about your team. Patrick and I are in the throes of a conversation about scheduling, and we were reacting earlier in the show when we had Sean Nadlin on. It was the first time I had, he was really forceful about, we have to have a conversation about this. This has to change. And I know everybody in the sport always complains about January and early February lacrosse, but we've been doing it for so long at this point that I kind of just feel like it's part of the calendar. This is the way it goes. Do you have a solution? Do you have something in your mind that can fix all of this for us so that we're not screaming about it every year?
I do not necessarily have a solution. I do think, when you're like, let's just step back and think common sense. When you think January, right, the unpredictability of weather, whether you're in Maryland or you're in New England, and we do have a lot of schools, even farther north from us, does it make a lot of sense to be playing games and scrimmages in January, given just safety reasons, like if you are lucky enough to get outside, like what's the temperature, how hard is the ground, is there some ice involved, things like that. So there's player safety. I also think, you usually are playing your league games at the end of the year, and then the early season provides some opportunities for really exciting out of conference games. And then the weather's so cold, like maybe you're not getting very good attendance, and people don't come to those games, and you have some good matchups. So I think the biggest thing is to figure out, working back to front, is could you push the last game back? We've kind of looked at Memorial Day weekend as a kind of like a thing in lacrosse where, people bring their families to the Final Four. It's something that, people, kids grow up going to that weekend. So we've been so locked into that weekend, you'd have to go, all right, we're getting off that weekend, and then is it permissible to do that? And then does moving it back, let's say, I don't know, 3 weeks, does that help the beginning of the preseason? Because we're all kind of like, like really trying to speed walk through this preseason, and you've got to be careful with how much you do, because an injury here, injury there, it definitely changes any team.
All right, let's talk about your team. It's a problem that we're going to be dealing with for some time. We're not going to solve the world's problems today, I don't think, but it's worth a shot. Coach, obviously, you guys with another great run a year ago to the championship game. I'll start with what you lose, and I'll start in goal, because obviously it's tough to lose a Logan McNaney, but has any program ever been more prepared to lose an all-world goalie the way that you are, and what did it mean to you that Brian Ruppel stuck around so that he was ready for this moment?
Yeah, that's one area where we definitely have a lot of confidence. We just know what Brian's capable of. Just having him here and knowing his character, his work ethic, the way he's wired, how hard he works, and just seeing him every day in practice, and then having that 23-year under his belt. He's got some playing time, so you have this rare opportunity where there's a new guy coming in. But he really does have, games under his belt. So the battles with Logan and Brian were pretty darn tight the last couple of years. So I think that's one area where, like, you look and go, like anything else, like there's always concerns at every position, but I think we all have a lot of confidence in that position, whether it's Brian or TC or Aiden. All three of those guys, I think, are very capable.
John, I like these sort of broad, sweeping, historical, tilted type questions, so I'm going to try something different instead. What is different about you guys? I know coaches like to say every year is different. So what is different about this team so that you have seen so far?
I think what's great about college is, that you get your time with the guys, and, your new guys show up, and you get to see them kind of young and wide-eyed. And then 2, 3 years later, you see their maturity, and you see them grow. And then all of a sudden they become the leaders. And it's just awesome to see that progression, because you know that, just this experience is going to get them ready for the rest of their life and all the challenges that they're going to face. So we did lose a great group of guys, great leaders, some guys that just not only did they do their job, but they had a good sense of, what the team needed, looked out for the younger guys, made sure we were organized. Guys like Daniel Kelly, Jack McDonald, obviously you mentioned Logan, and I could go on and on. So there's always concern when you lose those guys, but you also know there are other guys who can not only provide the playing time, but also the leadership. So we definitely are kind of working through some things like anybody else, just trying to get a sense of, what do these guys do best? And I think that's one thing we've always tried to do around here is play to the strengths of the guys, not force them into a box, and kind of put them in spots where they feel the most confident. And then, we try to kind of maximize their potential because of what we're doing to adjust to what they do, not forcing them to adjust with maybe some rigid rules and some things we want to do.
He is John Tillman, Maryland lacrosse coach. He's with us on the College Lacrosse Preview Show. Something that is different, you bring in Henry Dodge from Vermont. Someone that I think was in high demand in the transfer portal. What impresses you about him most, and what do you expect in his ability to translate to playing against the best teams in the country this season?
Yeah, just everything we heard, when we started to do our research, just heard how competitive, how invested he was. And all that definitely has rung true. Every day, he's putting in the work on the field, in the weight room, studying his craft, always wants to get better. What I've been probably even more impressed with is his ability to help the other guys in the unit. The face-off guys, we've always called them the hog pen around here. It's their group every day battling. And you would hope, much like a goalie room, you want those guys to be fierce competitors, and you want those guys to be starters, yet you want them to push each other to try to get better. And Henry's been great, just, helping the younger guys or the other guys, and just giving those guys advice like, hey, if you do this, it gives me more problems. Or, hey, like if you did this, that would force me to do this. And then helping and mentoring those guys, even mindset, technique, you name it. So that's been great. And not everybody can do that. Some guys just get focused on what their job is. And Henry's been really good at, sure, trying to maximize his potential, but trying to bring out the best in everybody else, which, again, that's just great leadership.
John, the number one jersey is obviously one of your traditions here over the last decade or so, maybe longer, really. You go back to Joe Walters and guys like that. But Eric Spanos gets the number one. What led to that decision, and just how fitting a choice do you feel like he is for that?
Yeah, that's always a tough one. You have usually, like every year, you're always going to have some strong candidates. So we always, we'd love to kind of announce that, maybe in the fall, and just, say, hey, here's the guy. And some years we have. I think maybe in Jared Bernhardt's case, we did that. And then some years you let it play out a little bit more, just in fairness to everybody. And we, like always, we always have some good candidates. And I think ultimately, Eric, just kind of seemed to be the logical choice. 5-year guy, just all the challenges that he's faced since he's got here. Guy faced some injuries in high school, really resilient. But since the day he got here, how hard he's worked, just a team first guy, always pushing himself to be better, great teammate, great leader. And other guys definitely are in that category. But I think as a staff, we just kind of felt like Eric was the logical choice, but certainly had several other choices that I think would have been great candidates as well.
I'm sure one of those guys that would have been on that list would have been Will Schaller, who is clearly one of the best players overall in the country. I don't know how many more superlatives you can offer for a young man like that. We think about that play from Notre Dame a year ago, which was just one of the more remarkable things, individual efforts I've seen. Can you put into words what he has meant to your program, and just what his heart does for this team?
Will's one of those guys we kind of mentioned about, getting guys ready for the next 40 years. That's a guy that whatever he does, he is going to excel and be super successful. You mentioned how hard he plays, the heart he plays with, how strong he is, how competitive he is. And those are things that people see. I think what people don't have an appreciation for is just the intellect, the type of leader that he is, how thoughtful he is. He's about as smart a guy as you'll see. His transcript in high school, it was only A's and A pluses, and there were more A pluses than A's. At first, I think was thinking pre-med, had a little change of plan just based on his interest and maybe what he wants to do. But he just, you think about student athlete, and boy, he's an A plus in everything. And again, physically strong, that's probably the first thing you see, how strong he is and how competitive and physical. Yet he is as bright as they come, not only in the classroom, but just can read the room, great with people, very thoughtful guy, looks out for the younger guys. Definitely, again, I kind of run out of adjectives when I think about him. And those are like, guys that, you have no doubts that, when people start calling about job opportunities and recommendations, you're like, you're going to want this guy. I can tell you this, and you're going to call later about how do I get more Will Schallers.
And then I was going to say, you've had a lot of luck with families over the years. You now have another Schaller on your roster. What have you learned about Eli? And I know he plays a different position and does different things, but is he someone that you can see some of those intangibles that you're talking about in?
For sure. And I think one thing I kind of like, I'm a third boy in a family, and I have great appreciation for my siblings. I think people kind of mentioned it with Drake May. He had some older brothers that toughened him up per se, and having some older brothers and kind of getting you ready for the real world, toughen you up, things like that. Eli, I think, has been great. He's got an old brother to get him ready as he's growing up. But playing a different position, I think, is super cool. Because he's kind of like charting his own path, and sometimes you can be in your brother's shadow. But I do think when you're playing on the offensive end and your brother's on the defensive end, there's a distinct difference there in terms of, the type of player that he is. They're both very physically strong. They're both great athletes. Their parents were very good athletes. Dad played lacrosse at Penn State. So they definitely come from great stock. They're just a hardworking blue collar family, just humble, but really smart people. And both those guys, I think Eli, we came out of the fall. We always have high expectations of our guys, but I think he was definitely a bright spot for sure in terms of just picking up things quickly, and being comfortable, not afraid. Definitely out there aggressive every day, and just trying to get better. So we're really excited about his future.
Couple guys on the rope unit I wanted to bring up. AJ Larkin taking over that spot at LSM after Jack McDonald's graduated, and Eric Kohler, one of the top short sticks in the game, I think. How vital are those two guys for getting to where you guys want to get to this season?
Yeah, both those guys, really excited about them. Both those guys are captains for us. So not only are they individually really good players, great leaders, great teammates, guys that they do their job, but they can also make sure that everybody else is on the same page, communicating, getting us organized, helping guys, picking them up, giving them guidance, and guys that not only on the field but off the field do a tremendous job. High character guys, just guys you never have to worry about. They're going to do the right thing. They're consistent, they're steady, and they're both tough as nails.
Offensively, you bring back obviously both Spanos and Urksa, but is there someone else, and as you lose a Daniel Kelly, is there someone else that you can see that's ready to maybe step up and be another big-time goal scorer for your group to kind of make up for the next group of guys that you did lose?
I think we have a good group. I don't know if there's necessarily one person. I think this group's definitely going to be all about the collection and everybody kind of playing off each other. Just because I don't think we've asked anybody to be the guy. Just go out there, play good lacrosse, share the ball, make good decisions. And I think those are the hardest teams to play against when you're just waiting for one guy to kind of carry the load. You get predictable. So I think the more we can get a number of guys involved, and I think we have some good depth, the more dangerous we'll be.
I know that's true. I also know you've had some pretty good luck with guys that were pretty good individual goal scorers over the years. Coach, the heartbreak of being there, and I know that the two teams the last 2 years are very, different types of teams, but how have the guys sort of channeled that frustration of being there and coming up short? And I know that you're not thinking about Memorial Day today. I understand that right now you've got a lot more games starting with Richmond to play, but how have the guys handled that, and do you feel like there's a sense of unfinished business from your group going into this year?
I never really look at it that way per se. I think unlike football, right, you get the ability to have a bowl game, and everybody kind of feels good about, going to that bowl game, and you hope you win, and going to a bowl game's an accomplishment. But in basketball, sports like basketball, lacrosse, everybody loses that last game except for one. And if it's not in a conference tournament and you're fortunate enough to make the NCAA tournament, you're losing. So there's disappointment anywhere, whether you go farther, like, you never want to lose the last game, but if you do have the good fortune to go in the Final Four, you've stolen more time together, which I think people cherish. And so you try to maximize that time and enjoy that time, but only one team is truly happy. And that's why I think as educators, it's not just about winning the last game. There's so much that we do that is important. And certainly, you try to win as many games as possible, but, what are you teaching these guys? What are the lessons that they've learned? Have you got them ready for the next 40 years? Did they have a great experience and make great friends? I think there's so much of what we try to do. I'm sure. And while you're doing it, you try to win all the games you can, but you're trying to do it in a way that makes everybody around here proud and, helping them grow as young people. And so their families, friends, and parents are more proud of them now than they were when they started. And they were proud of them when they started.
He is John Tillman. Again, the season starts this Saturday at Richmond and then home the following Saturday to host Loyola. Coach, you'll be checking in throughout the course of the season. Always appreciate taking the time for us. Thanks for hopping on today.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.